Northern Hemisphere, winter solstice, December the 21st, 2021. This is the first of two videos for today. Firstly, the Eschatology. This is dedicated to the memory of one of the greatest humans who's ever lived, Terence McKenna. If the truth can be told so that it can be understood, it will be believed. Human history represents such a break with the natural systems of biological evolution that preceded it, that it must be some type of mutation, some type of exception to the normal systems of planetary development and evolution. Unlike any other species that has ever existed, humanity can anticipate futures, see patterns developing, make conscious choices. For the first time ever, responsibility for the evolution of a species has been placed on the species itself, us. We can continue in our morally downward spiral, warring on each other, perpetually trying to be bigger, better, stronger, not caring about our relationship with nature, the planet, our sensitivity, our conscience, integrity, and our sense of spirituality. Or we can go on and beyond. The real truth is that history has failed. That for 12,000 years we've been lied to and force-fed divisive conditioning designed to alienate us from our true birthright. That we are all naturally and powerfully psychic. From birth we've been limited, restricted, conditioned and shaped by a kind of dominator culture that seeks to impose the lowest common denominator upon us all. Herd mentality has become the norm, whether it be gender, colour, religion or race that sets the boundaries. Power over has become the key to progress in the material world instead of power with and power within. Fear, paranoia, sin, sex and guilt are the tools by which the dominators seek to maintain their control. The placebos of cars, televisions, computers and money are the droplets of appeasement, designed to enmesh humanity in an ever-deepening morass of materialism, leading to ever greater divisions between the haves and the have-nots. Over the millennia, religion has been the single strongest tool in the hands of the dominators, imposing centuries of hardship and division upon people, resulting in irreconcilable differences worldwide with regard to what constitutes truth. Since the beginning of time, dominator philosophy has sought to isolate people and in their vulnerability impose behavioural attitudes and ideas. All religions, the possible exception of Zen Buddhism, I suppose, are based on the notion of disempowering individuals, bringing them to a mental state where blind obedience is the order of the day. For 10,000 years they've promised us utopia and they deliver a toxic, polluted, overpopulated planet. Enough is enough. All theologies have the notion of a kind of the end of the world built into them, and this sense of summing up of the totality of human knowledge and experience is what, as a species, we're going through now. It isn't going to happen the way we've been conditioned into believing. We're at the end of history, not the end of the world. We're privileged to have been born at the time of the greatest release of compressed change that we or our ancestors have ever known. And that change is happening now in our hearts and minds, in our attitudes towards ourselves, each other, and this beautiful planet that we are so blessed to inhabit. And that's what the dominators are really scared of. Us finding out how powerful we really are. We're witnessing an end of time culture where the younger generations have not been pushed down the same roads of belief and conditioning as their parents and grandparents, resulting in them growing up more aware of their intuition, their empathic and telepathic potentials, their sensitivity and their awareness of what is truly right or wrong. It is a rebirth of integrity that we are part of now, both personal and planetary. In all cultures, throughout time, there have been men and women who have dared to dream, to imagine the future, to go into areas and of mystery and imagination in defiance of society's conventions, whether they be shaman, shamanka, witch, poet, musician or artist, sorcerer or healer. These people seek to empower the future, to map out the rhythm signatures and vibrations of that future in readiness for species evolution. We are all our own shaman or shamanka now. And through a synergy between understanding and intuition, we can upgrade our inner circuitry and expand into those areas of the brain so far unavailable to us, where our true destiny lies ahead in the not distant future. The planet is actually interacting with us, whether it be for our own individual psychic experiences, through group sharing, through crop circle formations, natural disasters, or the mass gestalt of world opinion. The message that nature is saying is, transform your systems of communication. For 2,000 years we've survived and prospered by adherence to a strictly limited way of life, denying the intuition, the imagination, our own inner true feelings. By necessity we've lived the lie that society has sanctioned in order for species survival. And now it really is time to move on into a world defined by a new and better relationship with nature, to femininity, to ego, into a world defined by our own empathic sensitivity and compassion, and by what intuitively just feels right. Within a couple of generations, we will find ourselves in the middle of a kind of telepathic community, where individual privacy will still be the norm, but with the bonus of higher empathic resonance, making it impossible for anyone to harbour malice or thoughts of violence without it becoming obvious in their vibration. These changes are already taking hold, without it resulting in short-term confusion as previously indestructible habit patterns dissolve. We can resist these changes, hindering our descendants, or we can facilitate them and empower a more positive future that we've ever dared dream. We are at the point where through the use of sound, dance, movement, community, psychotropics, imagination and sensuality, we can find out who and what we really are and what our true purpose on this planet is. The key to reaching this point of illumination, of awareness as to who we really are and the real state of what's going on around us in our name, is by dealing with our stuff. Accepting ourselves as being who we are, warts and all, and moving on. We aren't ever going to be good enough, but we're always getting better. So don't ever stop trying. It is the effort, not the goal, that is required of us. It is the attempt, not the result, that invokes the future. The current concentration of astrological planetary energy, originating in the 60s, maturing in the 80s, escalating wildly since 1999, is approaching peak. From our time reference, peak now means 2019, 2020, 2021 through to 2025, 2026. This is not a drill. This is the final lead into the prime time, the omega point that our lives and the lives of countless of our ancestors have been building towards. It's the time that we've all been anticipating and fearing, knowing that we as individuals are being called to account for our honesty, our conscience, our integrity, and then being asked to move on into a better future like every being on planet Earth. Within our lifetimes, there will be an evolutionary leap, the like of which we've not seen since Cro-Magnon leapt out of Neanderthalis. The acceleration of population matches the acceleration of technology and the acceleration of spirituality. And that graph curve is not linear, it's exponential, and we're approaching prime vertical. So do we collapse in on ourselves, as perhaps happened 12,500 years ago when the flood happened? Or do we move on beyond existing boundaries into a multidimensional future where the only limits are those of the imagination? The timelines are drawing in. The options are running out. The fences are coming down. Do we acquiesce to the dominators and become even more insane, contributing to the ruination of the earth, the domination of nature, the suppression of the feminine and other spiritually bankrupt policies? Or do we tear the right-wing dwarf from our backs, eliminate fear, guilt and the sanctions that the televisions, the newspapers, the governments and the corporations have imposed upon us, and move ahead into a cleaner world of our own making? A world unpolluted by power, secure in our sense of individuality, yet aware of our function, our space, our role in a society based on love, community, consciousness expansion, empathy, and a sensuality and sensitivity to the environment. Because, and this is the big one, folks, if these things are not part of our future, what kind of future is it going to be? For thousands and thousands of years, our ancestors have sat around their campfires, daring to dream of a time when the purpose of existence would be understood. As we approach this time, we owe it all to our ancestors. We owe our ancestors to redeem them, to redeem history, to prove the basic good that resides in us all. So don't sell out to the newspapers, the government, the bully boys and the dominators. You are the centre of the only universe you will ever really know. It is our world. And we are rapidly approaching the time to reclaim the planet in the name of a culture that has unconditional love, intelligence, communication and global community as its basic root structures. These are the final few years of history as we have known it. The countdown is on. This is not a test. By the end of 2026, the scene will be set, and the die will be cast for the genesis of a new reality, the like of which we can only hint at the moment. It's the end of history, and the future really is in our imagination. Don't we owe it to our past to make the future the start of our story?